Thank you. And that concludes the superintendent's report. At this time, we'll move on to section I, remarks by retiring board members. And how many is that?
You and me.
Ms. Berkey, would you like to go first?
Okay.
You can't hide behind your flowers.
Move the flower.
I know, you can't hide behind them.
Okay, well, back in 1992, trip down memory lane. As the newly appointed Child Advocacy Chair for the Council of PTAs, I attended my very first ever school board meeting. It was at Deer Park Middle School. The subject of the evening was whether or not to close the campuses on the high schools at lunchtime. About 100 speakers decided they needed to share their opinion that night, and it was actually a little bit scary. The emotions were running very high. The crowd seemed to be split about 50-50. We knew it needed to be done. We'd had several severe accidents. And I distinctly remember turning to the person next to me and saying, "Remind me never to get involved with school board." But that summer, and by then I'd been moved up to PTA council treasurer, I started attending board meetings and budget workshops because that's what the council board did back in those days. The evenings were as much social as they were informational. We got to know people, and somewhere along the way that summer, I got sucked into the budget process. I'd already had one meeting early on with Mr. Jolly, just to sort of get me up to speed, and I remember him just, talking the way Mr. Jolly does, and at the end of that hour, I thought, boy, he wears cool shoes. Well, that was about all I came away with from that experience. But I kept attending the meetings, and the more I went, the more fascinated I became by all the competing factions, the salary schedules, the mandates, everything we were up against. And this was pre-Robin Hood, so there actually was some money available. So it was worth sitting through the process. My buddies usually went home early, but I'd always stay to the very end to see how everything was going to play out. And that fall, I was appointed to be the first ever parent on a budget review committee. And after going through that, I really looked forward to the next summer going through the budget. It was going to be a breeze. We perfected the process, and with all the pre-planning, it was going to be no problem. Well, the 1993 election came along, and a board majority with a religious right agenda was elected in May. They were on a mission to fire the superintendent, to cut the tax rate, to ban books, to change the teacher job description, and on and on and on. The board was meeting 2, sometimes 3 times a week, all summer long. The budget was finally passed in an emergency meeting on August 31st, about 2 hours before the legal deadline of when budgets had to be passed. Regular school board meetings, which had now been moved over to CD Folks to accommodate the 700 to 800 people who attended every meeting. Those meetings were regularly scheduled twice a month, 2 of these meetings a month, and routinely lasted till about 2 a.m. I think the latest one went to 3 a.m. Complaints were filed by citizens with TEA because of open meetings violation and other governance issues. An investigation followed of the district, and a TEA mentor was assigned to monitor every single board agenda, board action, board meeting. There are only a few of us left around here who lived through those days. But it was extremely destructive to this district, and those of us who survived are truly deeply scarred and don't ever want to see that happen in this district again, ever. Along with a bunch of other middle-of-the-road parents and taxpayers, I helped form Advocates for Public Schools. We were a registered PAC so that we could endorse candidates, but we mainly became a very trusted source of accurate information for this school district. We never said anything that we couldn't back up by at least 2 sources. Our agenda and our funding were totally local. We were in this for the kids of Round Rock ISD. We were for all kids and for the best education our school district could provide. When I was elected to this board in 1996, when those same 3 seats were all changed, all 7 of the board members following that election had been endorsed by APS. Now I look back over the last 9 years. For the first 5 years, I was part of an almost mystical synergy at this table. We were smarter when the 7 of us were together than we were individually. We trusted each other, we asked great questions, we demanded accountability and continuous improvement for all areas of this district. We hired a fantastic educator to lead us, we streamlined operations to maximize tax dollars, and we passed 2 big bond issues. We didn't change any board members for several elections. In fact, a couple of those races weren't even contested. But as Rigo, Vallejo, Gay Arnold, and Eric Whitfield left, they took some of that magic with them. We still had a good board, we were still focused on kids and learning, but it was different. Then the economy slowed down, Chapter 41 hit us sooner than expected because of a huge increase in property values in 1 year. More budget cuts and program changes had to be made, and folks who were being directly affected started to get real crabby. Now we're up to this year. The magic is gone. The headlines now are about school board members instead of student achievement. I've dreaded board meetings because I don't like us being short-sighted and stupid. I worry about the kids. I worry about keeping the best teachers and staff. I worry about who will even want to be superintendent in this district. I worry that the public isn't getting or believing accurate information because there's so much misinformation being dished out. And it's hard to know exactly who's even funding those efforts because the individuals involved are too ethically challenged to even report their campaign spending, which is required by law. But this district is so strong that I think it can coast for a while. I have some special people to thank who've really helped achieve the board's goals over the last few years. Tom Gall brought exactly the skills we needed when we hired him. Vision, strong leadership, amazing curriculum knowledge, personal and professional integrity, and a passion for wanting every student to succeed. His high standards were only a problem for those who couldn't meet them. Mike Jolly and the financial team are the best there is, and any money wasted on another audit will only prove it again. The budget is well managed, laws for everything from bids to compensation are obeyed, and these guys are even finding ways for us to make money. Matt Mathis, our vertical team leaders, and curriculum specialists have been working the teachers hard, but it's paying off and the tax results are proving it. Other measurements too. Tony Garcia and all her special programs take care of our kids in so many ways. Ed Zients and his team need a new infusion of money, but they've kept us moving ahead with our technology needs. Pulling the trigger on that fiber optic network ring scared me to death, but once we did it, it was one of those projects that you had to spend money in order to save money. Alan Albers and the construction department have built us quality buildings that we will be proud of for many, many years. And by keeping up with maintenance and repairs on our buildings, they're all safe and comfortable places to learn. And if you read the paper this morning, you saw a great article about our stadium that's something to be proud of too. And that thing is making us a lot of money. Kathy Brandewy and I probably hold some kind of record for the number of emails and phone calls back when I was chairing the Chapter 41 subcommittee. And believe me, I needed her every step of the way. Dan Roberts deserves his national award for the best transportation department. He's the expert when it comes to getting kids safely where they belong. I also want to thank Bill Bingham for keeping me legal all these years. I'm handing over my role as policy queen, knowing that the policies we operate under are up to date and the best we could make them. And I don't even think there are any typos in them. Thank you also to Lily, who does everything a board member asks. I was scared to death of Lily when I first started approaching the superintendent's office years ago, but now I consider her a very good friend. I also especially want to thank all our teachers and staff and volunteers who show up every day so students can learn whatever it takes. And a special thank you to John for going beyond the duty of president this year to try and make us a team, to pass the bond and to keep us doing what's best for kids. And lastly, thank you to my family, who just assumed Mom wouldn't be home for supper. Round Rock ISD has been my third child, usually the most difficult one. And now I'm ready to entrust it to somebody else who I hope will care for it as much as I have. Good luck, and don't screw it up.
I have to follow that. Well, I started my career back in 1993, and we moved to the district in 1990. And we looked for a school district first. We were living in the Pflugerville area, and my daughter was going to be school age, and I remember the decision that we had to make, and we picked a school district first, and then we found a house within the school district. So we ended up moving into the Wells Branch Elementary area, and we've been there ever since. The principal at the time was Tom Hansen, and after I got to know him a little bit, he came up to me one of these days, and he said, "You know, I need someone to serve on this new site-based concept that we're putting together. Do you want to do it?" I said, "Sure." "What is it?" So being the sucker that I am for a good cause, I said, "Yeah, sure." So I worked with a small group of people at the elementary school, and there was a few people here that normally show up to the board meeting that were on that, and we put together the first site-based model at Wells Branch. And from there on out, I think I've been on something every year since 1993. I worked on their technology committee, and during that time in 93, I think we had 20 elementary schools at the time. And we had gotten some grant money, and I can't remember where we got it from. But we decided that, you know what, all the 19 other elementary schools had Apple computer labs. And, you know, I was in the computer field, and I saw the trend starting to change over to IBM-type computers. So Ed Zients, Ed, you were still working here back then, and I remember we worked with Ed, and Ed was, I'm not going to say skeptical, but he said, "You know, we got 19 other schools that have this model, and you want to do what?" So Ed went out on a limb with us, and he backed it, and we had the first IBM PC-compatible lab at an elementary school in the district. And that began the transformation away from that platform. And now today, all elementary schools, and I believe middle schools and high schools, are all on that technology base. So Ed, thanks for taking the plunge with me. I think it was the right decision. Other committees that I served on. Boundary Committee. Boy. After serving on a boundary committee, the fact that I'm still here is just unbelievable. This next board in the school district is going to have an opportunity to do that a few times, and that was something that was really eye-opening as to how things work in the district. I was a Partners in Ed PTA, Partners in Ed rep to the Partners in Ed, Partner in Ed rep, PTA rep from Partners in Ed, and that was a really, really nice opportunity. I got to meet George Mooney, who they have a memorial award for this year. I knew him for about a year and a half, and after a year and a half, I felt like I knew him forever. What a wonderful person, what a wonderful soul. That was an opportunity to meet a lot of people in the district that had business and other interests, and people wanted to be on that committee to serve kids. So that was a really good opportunity for me. A year later, I think, I was on the PTA Legislative Committee, and we actually lobbied the state legislature that year. And the two issues that we worked on were school finance, and I got to work with Mr. Jolly. That's when I really started working with Mr. Spreadsheet over here. And got an opportunity to go down and lobby the legislature. We talked with state senators and state reps on two things, school finance. And as a result of that session, we actually got some changes in the models that gave Round Rock ISD some additional monies because we were fast growth, high growth. And as a result of that, we were able to move on some of our capital projects. The other thing was vouchers, and we'll have an opportunity to talk about that a little bit. But I worked with the PTA organization to successfully fight vouchers in the 2000 legislative session. And I know they're coming back, and we have an opportunity to talk about that later. I didn't realize what was happening to me, but some people were trying to groom me for a board position. And I kind of knew, but they put me on the right things to give me exposure across a variety of areas in the district. And it put me in a good position so that when I became a board member 3 years ago, I didn't have the steep ramp up that typically new board members have. So I had a lot of folks that were my mentors for a long time. And there's a few folks on this board, Jackie and Raymond, that were among those early mentors that helped to shepherd me along. Mr. Jolly took very good care of me, and there were other people that I really thank. But it really helped me to understand the kind of things that I would be facing as a board member, and I think it helped me to be effective a little bit earlier than I think most. I want to say this about volunteer positions. You know, a lot of people look at people on the board as kind of the top of the volunteer heap, and I don't see it that way at all. I think the person that's doing the PTA directory, that's working until midnight, waiting for 42 campuses to send in their phone numbers and their email addresses, are just as important in the work that I've done. I think that someone that volunteers to be a homeroom mom and is in those classrooms every single day working with kids is just as important as anything that I've done or this board's done. So anyone that's willingly will give up their time and their money and their resources to work with kids, and my book is just as important as anything that I have ever done on this board. So I just wanted to make sure that people appreciate the fact, I appreciate them, regardless of what their contribution is. We need their help, because without their help, we are not going to be successful in the future. At this point in time, 13 years, 12 years serving in a volunteer capacity, it's time to move on. And I made a decision, and I announced it in January, that I really wanted to spend the last few years that I've got my kids home. My daughter's a UT sophomore, and she just got accepted into the professional nursing sequence, so she's going to be a nurse, and I am so proud of her. My son's a sophomore at McNeil. We're going to be looking at college visits. He's a good baseball player. We're going to be traveling all around the state and even across the country this summer. I got a few years left with my kids, and I got a DVR at home, but you can't rewind and watch your kids growing up. And I had to make a decision. Did I want to be a good husband? Did I want to be a good parent? Did I want to be a good school board member? And I realized I couldn't do all three. And that was the driving factor for me deciding not to run for election. So it's time for me to move on, and there will be qualified people that will take my position and other people's position in the district. Mr. Navarro alluded to this earlier. There is a power transition going on in this district. And this is not untypical. I mean, this is happening all over the place, and it's a normal chain of events. And anytime you have a power transition, for those of you that are fans of any of the futurists like Toffler and other folks, there's always going to be some chaos. There's always going to be a little bit of uncomfortableness and some upheaval, and we're seeing that now. But what I don't want to lose sight of is that we still got something very, very good going here. Most of the change is going to be good. Some of it's going to take us back a little bit. But on the whole, we're going to get through this. This has happened before. This has happened all over the state, all over the country. It's happened for decades and centuries, and we're still in a very good position. People ask me, how did I hold up over the last 3-4 months? Because my first 2.5 years on the board, it was going pretty well. Last 4 months have been a challenge, and I think I've held up pretty well. So people have asked me, well, what's going on? Every time I pick up the paper, you're in there. How have you got through this? And there's a couple of things that have got me through it. A lot of prayer. God has heard a lot more prayers from me over the last 3-4 months than he has in a long time. And I prayed for strength and guidance, and I did receive it. So that really did help. I've got a great support system. I got a wonderful family, a wife and 2 kids. I got a good core group of friends that keep me grounded, that make me laugh. I've got folks that just constantly reassure me that, thank you for doing what you're doing. You're doing the right thing. You'll get by it, and that really did help. And the other thing, and this is for incoming board members, take care of your mind and your body. I mean, I try to adhere to a good diet, and I exercise, and I eat well, and I try to sleep well. But I tell you, there was many mornings over the last 3-4 months at 4:30 when I would wake up and the brain would just spin up. And so my day started pretty early over the last few months. I ride a bike. That's my exercise. I love it. I get out there on my bike, and I think some of my neighbors think I'm a little nuts because I'm rehearsing my speeches and what I'm going to say and how I'm going to prepare for a board meeting. So they see this guy riding around in the neighborhood talking to himself. So I'm not nuts. I don't think so. There's obviously some concerns that I have, and it was alluded to earlier. And this isn't just unique to this district. I think we're seeing a loss of some basic civility in the interactions in this district. And it really is a microcosm of what we're seeing in society as a whole. And I would hope that the next board and the community could find some way to kind of bring that back to how we should be acting as a civilized society. the other thing that I'm seeing, and it's related to what I just said, I think that we're seeing a slow erosion of discipline in the classrooms. And that's something that we need to look at really hard. So if we're losing basic civility at board meetings and in the public and in TV interviews, why would we expect any difference to see that kind of erosion in the classrooms? I want us to back up the teachers in the classroom. I know, because my wife used to be a teacher, and I know a lot of teachers that I still stay in contact with. There's a lot of pressure to not write referrals and move students that are having discipline problems out of the classroom. We got to get away from that. We got to back our teachers. We can't be threatened by parents that bring in lawyers because you yelled at their kid. We got to take the steps to remove students that are interrupting learning in classrooms. And we can't be afraid to make those kind of decisions. The other thing that I'm concerned about is that we have a hard time giving credit where credit's due. And I know people have opinions about Dr. Gall, and some people love him and some people don't, and some people are ambivalent. But there have been some good things that have happened in this district because of him. And, I've gone head to head with him. We haven't always been on the same page, but we're still very successful. And to not give credit to him and to his staff and to the principals and the vertical team leaders and the teachers that are on the ground and not giving them credit for some of the good information that we've seen. I mean, we had a couple of very good things happen this week. Round Rock ISD was honored for the 14th consecutive time of What Parents Want award. 97% of our high school seniors passed the exit level tax test. That's phenomenal. This information came out 2 days ago. I haven't seen it in the newspaper. They would rather print information about board meetings and board members and superintendents and chaos as opposed to this stuff. This is why I became a board member, for kids, and we have really gotten away from that. We're focusing on adults and numbers and conflicts, and we're not celebrating these kind of things that are the essence of why we're here. So I would challenge the media, and of course, the cameras are gone now, right? They were here for the contentious agenda item about the school board candidate. That's news to them. Well, this is news to me, and it should be news to everyone that sits in this room. I'll be honest with you, the defeat of the bond was, probably the low point in my board service. I have never worked so hard in my life. I was up at 5 in the morning, doing email, rehearsing what I was going to do for the day, going to work, taking as few calls as possible, going to meetings, speaking. I was on talk radio multiple times, media interviews, yada, 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 yada. I worked hard, but a lot of other people worked hard. And there's a lot of folks in this room that worked on Project Yes or Project Kids. And thank you for the hard work that you put into that. I know it wasn't successful, but I think everyone gave it their best. One of the things that I didn't like about what I saw through that whole process is I felt that voters got somewhat cheated out of the information that they really should have had to cast an informed vote. It may not have changed the result of the election, but they really deserve to have good, accurate information. And there was a wide disparity in the information that they had. And they had to make a decision based upon that. And again, maybe it would have been defeated, but I think that they deserve better. What we saw here is happening all over the state. There are organized groups in 60-plus school districts that are attempting to do the same thing. I think there's some good things that happen as a result of it, because these groups are really making us scrutinizing what we want to spend our money on. But the effort is to defeat bond packages, regardless of how good or bad they are, to come back at a later time with a much smaller package. So this isn't something that was unique to Round Rock. And you're going to see more and more of it, and we're finding more and more stories, about it. Some of the highlights, good stuff. I got to hand my daughter her diploma when she graduated from McNeil in 2003. And I have that picture on the mantle in our living room, and it's a picture of me with a big old smile on my face and my daughter with a big old grin on her face. And it was just phenomenal. The opening of the stadium a few years ago. thought I'd never want to talk about the stadium again. The buzz in the air that evening, it was electrifying. The kids were just thrilled to no end. There was a buzz in the stands. The parents were happy. All the board members and administration and previous board members that were involved in this had the opportunity to dedicate that stadium. And to this day, thousands and thousands of more kids are able to participate in extracurriculars on that stadium, and they're enjoying it. And, you know, I don't have any facts on this, but I would say a lot of the people that made the stadium a campaign issue probably never set foot in that stadium. In 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, when more and more kids get to use that stadium, they're going to look back on that thing and say, boy, whose idea was this? This was a good idea. The increased revenues that we're seeing now between scoreboard advertising and gate receipts, I believe it's close to $900,000. That money is going to help to fund extracurriculars and almost pay for them in this district. That never came out during the bond campaign. It was said, it was on FAQs, it was on websites, but there was too much other noise going on. So I don't regret building that at all. The kids love it, and kids for many decades are going to love it. The other thing is the phenomenal tax scores. If you look at our tax scores from last year and this year, the preliminary figures, we're doing very well. We're doing better than we're supposed to be doing. We should always be doing like that. I mean, we've always set standards in this district that are higher than what other people expect of us. I want to celebrate that. This isn't a fluke. This isn't 2 years in a row. This is not a fluke. I mean, Dr. Gall and admin and the principals, everyone contributed to this. And again, I want to give another opportunity to thank the teachers. They're the ones in the trenches, and they're the ones that made sure that our kids were following the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And they were the ones that put themselves and the students in a position to be successful on those tests. The other thing I'm very happy about is closing the achievement gaps in our different populations. And we're doing that faster than most other school districts. And Tony, you could attest to that. And we've had some presentations that show that our gap is closing quicker than others. I am not happy. Let me put it this way. I'm happy with the results. I'm not satisfied. One of these days, I hope some board is up here and they put a chart up where they never even have to show that there's any gaps at all. And I believe that we can achieve that. And if everyone else believes we could achieve that, we could get there one of these days. We don't have any low-performing schools. You know, the demographics and the people that have crunched numbers, we probably should for a district our size, and the changing populations that we're seeing. And we're on very good financial standing. This administration and previous administrations took steps years and years ago in anticipation that we would be in a tough financial situation across the state one of these days. We have got people from all over the state that has asked for our assistance. We got probably the top financial team in the state. There are people that are licking their chops, hoping that some of these folks defect and decide to lead. We got folks at TEA that want to hire our people, from TASB. School districts have been trying to lure some of our top people away. We've had TEA give us awards, the first award for a couple of years in a row that measured us on a variety of things. The bond rating companies gave us a AA bond rating, the highest given to any school district in the state. We pass our audits. Those folks know what we're doing. Those folks know that we're in good financial state. And that was one of the fatalities in the recent bond campaign, because they try to make it look like that we're not very well run financially. We're in a good position right now to have a soft landing if the legislature comes up with a funding plan that doesn't help most of the districts in the state. And it's because of the folks like Mr. Jolly and his staff that put us in that position. Okay, this is a message to the next board. We got some folks that are going to be moving on this board, Doc and Deanna and Elizabeth. You got a lot on your plate. I mean, superintendent appointment, search, bond package, boundary changes, legislative session, budget approval, funding changes. You got a lot going, and it's going to happen pretty quickly. And it's one of the reasons I'm happy that Mr. Morales decided to throw his name in the hat, because he's going to be able to help that new board coming in on, along with the existing board members, to get them to the point where they can make good decisions for the district. I would urge you to keep your focus on the kids, and let's move away from the adults and the numbers. Let's just focus on kids. You also need to understand that you will represent the entire district. I know there's people that are going to be coming up to you, and they're going to they want you to make good on a campaign debt. You know, I elected you. I put you in office. You know, I own you. You will hear that. But at some point in time, you got to declare your campaign debts paid, and you got to realize that if you live in the north part of the district, you represent kids on the east side just as much as you represent your own kids that are in the school. Whether you like it or not, most people are going to look at you as a board member. You really are going to lose some of the private citizen label. I know we like to say, well, I still have a private life. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. And you need to resolve that you are going to be looked at that people are going to be looking at you as a board member. This should be sensible advice, but don't break the law. You know, I'd like to pick up the paper for maybe a month period of time where we're not in the news. But when you do that, you bring shame on yourself and you bring shame on the district. And don't micromanage. I keep cheat sheets, and this is a nice cheat sheet that shows where the board needs to operate, where the delineation is, where that where that line is in that circle of being above the line and below the line. Understand what your role is. You're not there to pour over a spreadsheet to find out that you could buy this toilet replacement part for McNeil High School at Home Depot for $1.50 versus $3 over at Lowe's. That's not why you're on here. That's why you hire a superintendent and they build an administration to do that kind of stuff. Also accept each other's differences and work from a position of trust and respect. You're going to have people with different ideas, disparate views, but you can still have a basic civility and operate from some trust that can make you successful. There's an upcoming summer TASB Leadership Institute. You should go to that as a full board. Bond as a group, go to lunch together, take the same classes together, go out to dinner as a board in Bond. We didn't have that last year. I wish we did. We could have got off to a better start if we did. Gobble as much education up as possible. For new board members, there's a minimum number of requirements. It's higher than existing board members. Take that and go beyond that, because you're going to be able to get education in finance, parliamentary procedures, leadership styles, a variety of things. There's a lot that you're going to have to learn. And I wish everyone the best. Those that are running today, thank you. Those that will win and will be seated on the board, you got my full support, because I really, truly love this school district and I want the best for it. Okay, I'm almost done here. So now comes for the special thanks part, and I think I've alluded to some of this earlier, but I've had the opportunity to work with some very good people, some good professionals. Dr. Gall, Mike Jolly, Mike's staff, Mike Estes, Tracy, Ed, Alan, Dan, Tony, Gary. I mean, just a variety of people that I've had just great dealings with. These folks are good folks. They all have the best interests of the kids in mind. Lily, I was never afraid of you. She must have softened.
Mellow.
I always could get a hold of Lily. I always could get a hold of Tom through Lily. She was just a pleasure to work with. Again, I want to support our dedicated teaching professionals. I know a lot of teachers in this district, and these are the reasons our kids are succeeding. To make the suggestion that we're not doing anything right in this district is a slap in their face, because they're on the front lines and they're busting their hump day in and day out. And that literature that I held up earlier that shows how we're succeeding, that's because of them. And they deserve our thanks and support. Both of my kids came up through the Round Rock school system. My daughter's already in college, doing great. My son's doing well. They had great teachers. They did. They had a lot of good teachers. Teaching is a tough job, and it's always going to be a tough job, and my hat's off to them. My kids aren't here. Ben's at baseball, Kelly's studying for a test. But I missed a few of their events, but I did a pretty good job of not missing much. And lastly, I want to thank someone that's very special in my life, and that is my wife. For those of you that know Patty or don't know Patty, she's got a mind of her own. She has, I'm a fan of Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Successful Folks, and one of them is keep your saw sharpened. Well, she keeps my saw sharpened. We have great conversations. We're not on the same page all the time. We've had great debates in the living room. We've gone to bed mad a few times over some of those debates. Since she came up, later in her lifetime, that's normal for teachers. She graduated with a teaching degree in 2000, so she already had life under her belt as far as a mom, volunteer. But she always helped me to understand the perspective of the teacher, and she's really helped me to make decisions in their best interest. She's done double duty, taking kids to practice, picking them up, going to meetings that I couldn't get to, doing the extra cooking and cleaning and running to the store, and it's just made my job just phenomenally more easier. She's always supported me in this. Very few grumblings about, oh boy, when are you going to come home, or you're not home. So I'd like for her to just come up here just for a second, because I just want to give her something.